Hey, hi Ndula guys, welcome to our UiPath Impulse channel. Hope you guys are doing good. And today we are going to see about the Excel automation. So we can do a number of operations in Excel automation. So you can see the Excel automation can be used to automate tasks such as data entry and calculations and report generations. So we can also create powerful data visualizations, and the Excel automation can also be used to generate the reports from the database, and we can do more operations like copying and sorting and filtering the data table and filtering the particular thing in the Excel sheet. So all these things we are going to see in our Excel automation. So we have n number of activities in the UiPath Studio. So let's not waste any time and let's get started with our UiPath Studio. So this is our UiPath Studio, and so currently, I'm using UiPath Studio 2024.10.4 version. And when it comes to Excel activities, I'm using UiPath.excel.activities 2.24.0. Okay. So what is our today's objective? So today's objective is going to start in our Excel automation. So in this video, we are going to work on Excel modern activities and the workbook activities. So in the Excel modern activities, we are going to work with two different kind of activities. One is read range activity and write range activity. So which is a basic activity and most important activity, where in every automation we will be having a requirement to read the data from our Excel and write the same data into another sheet after filtering and doing some sort of operations. And so likewise, we also have an option to work with workbook, same read range and write range. And in this video, we are also going to see what is the difference between Excel modern activities and workbook activities. So in the functionality wise, both the usage of activities is going to give the same output, but there are some requirements to use the Excel activities, and there are some requirements to work with workbook activities. So these things we are going to see. So let's get started with the Excel modern activities. Let's go to the activities panel. So if you type the Excel, so we can see a number of activities that is listed, like Excel process scope and use Excel file, append range, delete column, copy paste range, delete rows, fill range and read range, insert column, insert rows, lookup range and read range, sort range, VLOOKUP, write data table to Excel. So all these activities we are going to see in our upcoming tutorials. So let's get started with our today's objective. So to work with the Excel activities, the first and most important thing that we need to use is a Excel process scope. Followed to that, we have to use another exclusive activity, which is a use Excel file. So just drag and drop the use Excel file activity. So here in our use Excel file, UiPath is asking, so which Excel file I'm going to work on. So here in this activity, you can see there is an icon as folder icon. Just hit on the folder icon. It will navigate to your project folder. So in our project folder, we already have saved our input file. So it is in the input data folder. Just double click the input data folder and select this input file. So we have an input file of input data, employee details. So in this employee details input sheet, we have a data of employee name, employee ID, and department and hire date. So we are going to perform a various different kind of operations in our upcoming video. So let's close this. And now our objective here is to read the data from our Excel sheet. So for that, we have an activity in our UiPath Studio, which is a read range activity. So as we know, now by default, UiPath is allowing to work with modern design experience. And currently, we are working on Excel modern activities. So now so previously, we were using classic Excel activities. And so now let's learn how to work with Excel modern activities. So this is our Excel modern activity of read range activity. So now there are two things which we need to give as an input for this activity. So one is range. So until which range I need to read and where upon where I need to store this data. So now let's focus on range. So to give the range, we have three options in UiPath modern Excel activities. One is, so here you can see the sheet one. When we are giving the file path in our use Excel file activity, UiPath is automatically recognizing the what are all the sheets that is available in our input Excel sheet, and now it is giving it. So if you select here, you can see the sheet one is entered automatically. So if we need to check whether we have the sheet one is the correct name as a sheet name, let's just check. So you can see sheet one is the correct sheet name. So we have another option to choose our read range, which is indicate Excel. So once we hit on indicate Excel, our input file will be opening and we can just select until which range we need to read our data. So once we selected, we need to hit on confirm. So here you can see the difference, right? Previously, we have only until sheet 1, and after indicating the Excel, we have a range with A1 colon E21. Okay, and we also have another option which is a custom input. So in our custom input, we have four different options. So if we look with the sheet, so we need to mention the sheet name. Okay, so likewise we have to use a read range activity. So now we have chosen the range which UiPath needs to read. Okay, now let's store into a variable. Let's give dt. dt means data table, and employee details. Okay, so here in the properties, UiPath is asking whether in our Excel sheet do we need to read with headers or without headers, or it is asking the selected range is having the headers or not. So if we uncheck, UiPath will give the output without the headers. If it is checked, then UiPath will give the same as the Excel sheet with headers. So now let's see how our UiPath has read the data in the Excel sheet. For that, we have an exclusive activity in UiPath, which is output data table as text. So here in this read range, it reads the data in the Excel and it will store into a data table variable. So here our input of this activity will be dt employee details. The output will be as text. So let's create another variable as text. And now let's use a log message activity to see visually. Choose a log level as, let's say, info. Now let's save and hit on run file. So now you can see all our data is being stored in the data table variable, which is dt employee details. And by using an activity of output data table as text, we can see the output in our text variable. Okay. Now let's see how to use a write range activity. So previously we have an activity as write range. Now it is updated as write data table to Excel activity. So we have to search with the same name, write data table to Excel. So this is the write range. This is the activity name in the modern Excel activity. So let's drag and drop, and here it is asking what to write. What we need to write, obviously it is a data table, and where we need to write, let's say we need to write in a sheet 2. Okay. So now what we need to do, I'll just choose sheet 2. So here it is asking whether we need to append or not, or we need to exclude the headers. So here in this case, I don't want to exclude the headers. I don't want to append the data as well. So let it be there. And now let's save and run this file. So you can see, right, even while automation is running, our Excel is being open in the background. Even if the Excel is being open in the background, still our UiPath can able to make an operations without any issues. So this is what another main advantage of using an Excel activities in the UiPath Studio. If we are using an workbook activity, then we need to close the Excel sheet which we are working, because if it is working, if the input file is opened in the background, then UiPath will throw an error stating that the file is being used by an other process. So follow to this, we are going to see how to work with read range workbook activity and write range workbook activity. So far we have seen how to use a Excel modern activities, how to use the Excel file, and how to use a read range. So read range is the activity which used to read the data from the Excel, and it will be stored into an data table variable. So by using the output data table activity as a text, we have an option to convert the data table data into a text format, and that text format is considered to be an string data. So we have used a log message to display the result. And so as we have already, so we have an objective to write the same data to an another sheet. So we have chosen a write data table activity, and what we need to write the data table, and where we need to write it is in the sheet 2. So here in this case we have chosen the same file and the different sheet, but in the real scenario or as per the requirement, we can choose the another Excel file as well. Okay, so now follow to that, we are going to see how to work with workbook activities. Okay, now let's minimize this sequence, and let's, in the activities panel, let's search as sequence. Let's drag and drop the sequence here and rename as workbook activities. Okay. And now our objective is to read the data from the Excel. So let's see how we can do the same thing with the workbook activities. Now read range workbook activity, just drag and drop the read range workbook activity. So here it is asking the workbook path. So previously in our Excel, while we are using the Excel modern activities. So it uses the use Excel file, and in the whole, we have given the Excel work path. So within that, we have used a number of activities. So here in the workbook activity, for each workbook activity, we will be mentioning our workbook path. So let's select our workbook path and the file name. So here we don't have any option as like we have in the Excel. So we need to go to the Excel sheet and we need to copy the sheet name, and let's into the UiPath Studio. Within the double quotes, let's paste it. And if we use a double quotes, it means our bot should read the whole data which is available in the Excel sheet. Okay, now, so let's comment out. So Control plus D is comment out. Now we are going to work only with the workbook activities. So now let's try to use a right range activity in the workbook. So here simply we are going to read the data from the sheet 1 and write the data to sheet 3. Okay. So where we, in which sheet? It is the same file but in the different sheet. Now we haven't created a sheet 3, but if we given the sheet 3, our workbook will create a sheet 3, which is a new sheet, and it will write the data. Yeah, let's see how it works. And in which data table? Okay, so here in this read range workbook, we need to create a data table to store the data. So for that, let's say DT employee, let's say employee data. Okay, so let's use the same data table, DT employee data. So all the variables which we are creating inside the workflow will be listing on the variable panels. In case if we need to change the variable type, or if we need to change the variable name, so if we change, it will be reflecting everywhere like this. Okay. And now let's see how this is working. Okay. And so previously, as we discussed, if we are working with the workbook activity, if the required input file is being opened in the background, it will throw an error. Let's see whether it is throwing an error or not. Obviously, it will throw error, but I just want to show you how it is throwing an error. Okay. So you can see the process cannot access the file because it is being used by another process. So whenever we are using the workbook activities in our automation, it is mandatory to close the Excel file. Okay. So now let's save and rerun the file. Now let's open our input sheet and let's check whether in this, whether our bot has created the sheet as sheet 3, and let's see whether the same data is being written in there or not. Yeah. So in the projects panel, go to the project. Now let's open our input. So you can see the sheet 3 sheet, new sheet has worked. So here you can see our data is being written without headers. So it means in while using the write range activity, we haven't checked the add headers. Okay. So now let's save the file, close our input file. Let's rerun the file. rerun the automation. Now let's check whether now the, so you can see our headers is now written. Okay, so this is it. So in the whole summarize, so we have seen how to use the Excel modern activities, how to use the workbook activities, and what is the difference between the Excel activities and what is the difference between, like, what are all the advantages of using the Excel activities and what are all the advantages of using the workbook activities we have seen. So in our upcoming series, we will be going to see a lot of Excel activities, which is there in our activities panel. Yeah. So here in our, so whenever we are using our Excel activities, it is okay to keep our Excel sheet in the background. If we are using the workbook activities, the Excel should not be in the background. We have to close before using our, before using the workbook activities. And one main advantages of working with the workbook activities, even if the Microsoft Excel application is not being installed in our system, still we can work with the workbook activities. Still we can do a number of Excel operation. But when it comes to Excel activities in the Excel activities in UiPath Studio, only if we have MS Excel application in our machine, we can able to use all these Excel activities. So here you can see, so all these Excel activities will be able to work only if the Excel is being installed. If there is no Excel is installed in our system, but still if we need to do some Excel automation performing Excel automation, then we can go ahead and choose the workbook activities. So please share this video and stay tuned for another exciting topic. Thank you. Bye. Happy automation.